Everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
One of the most powerful presentation I've listened to since I've been up here. Well, since I've been here in Dixfield is Sister Christine Penny's testimony. Powerful testimony. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to try to share some of my experiences. Nothing close to her life, but hopefully we can learn from some of these things. Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 5, I'll just read it again. And hopefully throughout this presentation, you'll see why that was my scripture of choice. If thou hast run with the footmen, and they have wearied thee, then how can thou contend with horses? And if in the land of peace wherein thou trusted, they wearied thee, then how wilt thou do in the swelling of Jordan? The narrow way is the title for today. I don't know if you are familiar with Ellen White's vision. As they kept progressing, they had to get rid of more stuff because it was getting tighter and tighter. And it is said that this is going to be our walk as a church and personally. A lot of people think that as we gain more knowledge, as we gain more understanding, then we get to be more comfortable. That's the tendency. But we have to fight that, and we have to also understand that the path that the Lord has for us is a narrow way. And it takes a lot of self-sacrifice to make it all the way to the end. I'm reminded of the Reformation with Luther. Look at this text. Luther trembled as he looked upon himself, one man opposed to the mightiest powers of earth. He sometimes doubted whether he had indeed been led of God to set himself against the authority of the church. Can you imagine that? One man, like the whole world at the time, or the known world, the papacy was controlling all of that. And here is this monk who was just trying to follow what he's been taught, all the traditions. And after finding out the truth, he realized he couldn't be silent. He had to stand up against the whole system, that every nation was following. Who was I, he writes, to oppose the majesty of the Pope, before whom the kings of the earth and the whole world trembled? No one can know what my heart suffered during these first 2 years, and into what despondency, I may say, and to what despair I was sunk. So it was not easy. A lot of people, they hear the stories, the 95 Thesis, and how he always would use the Bible to powerfully show the different points of righteousness by faith, how we only need Jesus. It's beautiful, but here he is saying how it was hard. It was very hard for him to go through that. But thank God for Jesus. But he was not left to become utterly disheartened. When human support failed, he looked to God alone and learned that he could lean in perfect safety upon that all-powerful arm. Amen. And we have the pioneers as well. Ellen White, she didn't want this, A lot of times at the beginning, the vision she would be given, where she had to go tell people messages about whether they were in sin and to rebuke them. She did not want to do that. And we all know that she didn't go to school for long because of her injury. And she co-founded the church. This is the church that the Lord had used her to start up. And, James White, going from different places, leaving their homes very young, at a young age, going to unknown territories, not knowing what to expect when they would be in these places, giving these messages at a time where there was a lot of heresy out in the Northeast especially. So this turns us to Abraham's story. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will shew thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. Amen. You know, I can relate with Abraham a little bit for those that know. I was born in Massachusetts. My parents, after my dad went to school, he tried to settle here, but he had to kind of like go back to school and start all over, and he was not a big fan of that. So he went back home. He went back, and he took all of us back, and we decided, and that's where I grew up for most of my life. Well, until I was 18. That's where I was raised. I went to primary school, high school. All my friends, my cousins, those were the people that was my support system. And I did not say that, huh? Okay. I was raised in Haiti, which is in the Caribbean. Shared the island with the Dominican Republic. Hispaniola was called before. So thank you for reminding me. What I wanted to say to that is, when it was time for me to leave, my dad always wanted me to get the best education, and he thought coming back to the U.S. would be a good choice for me to do so, and which I did. And I applied to a school in Massachusetts. It was a 2-year junior college, Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology. And I got admitted there. And when I left, it was hard, I was excited to come to the U.S. You hear we would come for vacation, meet family and stuff. So we were somewhat familiar with the system, the culture out here. But it was still hard in the sense that you're going to leave everything you know. My friends, my parents, we were very close as a family. My dad's brothers, my uncles, every year we would do stuff. We would go on the countryside, go to the beach, just a lot of different things. Haiti is very tough. I'm not going to lie, very poor country when you compare it to here, but I had a good life and I would not have traded it for anything. I have one of my best memories are from back there, and I enjoyed my childhood, to be honest. So that was a big part of my life, and just coming out here, getting to know people. It was good that I came to my aunt's. I lived with my aunts for a couple of years and started meeting new friends. I remember I would be online talking to my friends back in Haiti, and they're like, why are you always on the internet? I'm like, well, I don't know anybody here yet. So I would be online chatting with my friends and kind of like asking them what's going on, what's new with them. And just to show there was still this attachment. Because if anyone knows me, I was just about being with my boys, going out, spending time with them. And when it was time to go back home, that was always the worst time of the day, because now you have to go back and whatever you had to go do there and get in trouble. So I had to spend time. I love to spend time with my friends, playing basketball, sports, just having a good time. That was the definition for me. And here we see in Hebrews chapter 11, it says, by faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. So Abraham, who left everything behind, everything he knew, came to Canaan, and he was just sojourning. If you see it, he was just going from place to place, within Canaan, and as a stranger. And that's how I felt, because after those 2 years in junior college, the plan was always for me to get at least a bachelor degree. because, my dad kind of ingrained that you have to get at least a bachelor degree. And so I transferred to UMass Amherst, which was a couple hours away from where my aunt used to live, a couple hours west. Yes. Who said that? Yeah. Good. A couple hours west. And when I went there, again, I had to start all over, no, they didn't know anyone. And I guess a lot of us go through that going to college, but it was kind of readaptation that I had to go through again. And it was fun. I met a lot of good people that I still stay in touch with, that I still talk to today. Great memories that I've made back in UMass Amherst. And towards the end, that's where I met God. That's where I experienced God for the first time. We grew up Catholic back in Haiti, and, we were just doing it for the form, really, when I think about it. We just went to church because that's what everyone else did. The service, I cannot remember any of the messages. There was no interest whatsoever. But towards the end of my college life, things started, you get into relationships, they don't work out, you start thinking about life a little bit more because, hey, you're about to graduate. And you start realizing, wow, am I in the right place? All these decisions that I made, where am I going? Where am I heading? And around that time, there was an earthquake in Haiti, and I lost people that I knew, people that I was close to. So it was a very shaky time in my life. And for the first time, I said, God, I'm going to give you a try. Because I started feeling that emptiness. I was asking myself, what's the point of life, really? I mean, I'm going to do this, maybe have a family, maybe have kids, and then have a life, a career, and then you die, and that's it. To me, that wasn't enough. Some people, to them, that's enough to motivate them to keep going every day, but or at least they make it seem that way. But to me, there had to have been more to life. And thankfully, around that time, I had a Seventh-day Adventist friend, which I didn't know at the time. He was my roommate. He used to go out with us and all these parties and stuff, and all of a sudden, he stopped and studying his Bible, telling us to study the Bible, and when we used to get so annoyed. And but when I got to that point of my life, and I'm pretty sure he must have been praying for all of us because there were three of us in the house at the time. He's the one I went to. Hey, I want to know God more. What do you have for me? And he just gave me Steps to Christ. I didn't know who Ellen White was at the time. I just thought, hey, this sounds like an interesting book to kind of get me to know Jesus more. And that's how it went. Long story short, I accepted the Sabbath, to that study, to talking to him, to studying the Bible. I would spend literally days just reading the book, and I was hungry for more, and I couldn't stop. And I thank God for that experience. But it took me, and this is the part that I want to stretch out throughout this presentation, it took me getting out of my comfort zone, getting out of my support system. Because I had my parents, I had my friends, I had people that I'd known for years, people that I knew were there for me. And as I kept on moving and traveling, it wasn't around anymore. So I had to start relying on a higher power, something more, something I knew could understand my situation and could point me in the right direction. And I felt like, yes, my parents would still be there for me, but they weren't with me. They couldn't fully understand what I was going through. And I chose to give, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened with him as well. The more he was away from his family, the more he had to rely on God. I'm pretty sure he had a relationship back then, but it definitely got stronger in these situations. And guess who had to leave his family behind? Jesus. So you see this recurring theme there where you have to leave what you know, your comfort zone, to truly experience who God is. Because only when you're in those situations do you start going for him, calling out for him, crying out for him. Jesus had to leave heaven to come and save us. And it was a very, very lonely walk. No one understood him, not even his close disciples, the mission that he came to do. Yes, he to the point that sometimes he tried to find comfort in them, and it was to no avail. So just as we say that we're followers of Christ, this is part of the walk where you're not in control, as we always want to be. In Mark chapter 1, verse 9, it talks about baptism, Jesus getting baptized. And I believe that most of us, if not all of us, got baptized at some point. And being submerged in the water and then coming out of that, which, the Bible says is the sign of dying to self. But if you look at Revelation 17, waters also represent people, nation. So it's also a symbol of coming out of the world, right? You're submerged in that and you're coming out, which is why it's important to be submerged, because you were in the world and now you're being free from that. And not just the people, but the traditions, all the things that you've been taught. Even if you're born in the church, you have to get to a point where you're born again and you're questioning everything and making sure it's aligning with the word. And sometimes it can cause you to separate from those that you love. But are you willing to do it for Christ? In Genesis chapter 4, verse 12, when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. This is Cain. This is the curse that God called upon him. Why? This was supposed to be a blessing, actually. And we'll see. That word fugitive, what it means is to wander, to move. God wanted to put Cain in a position where he didn't have control to sanctify him. But what did he do? Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. Cain said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm building myself my own little kingdom where I have access to everything, where I have control. And he didn't want to be sanctified. He didn't want to be led by God. God wants us to be in situations where we're not in control so we can go to him. Not always in control, or at least the way we think about it. And that was not the case. Cain built a city for himself. He had selfish motives doing so. And we can see that all throughout. Genesis chapter 11, verse 4. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And that's what eventually happened. They did get scattered. That was God's plan all throughout. But what did they do? They wanted to build themselves a city, to stay together. And we know trouble always come out of that, and we need to, when it says the word here, forgot to say that, let us make a name for ourselves. The Hebrew word there, it can also mean glory, reputation, like, oh, let's make a career where you have an objective to make it to the top. That's fine and all, but what's your true motive behind that? Is it just to make it to the top? Is it just for your own glory? And a lot of time, that's what happens when we get into our comfort zone. And God is just trying to shake our world a little bit so we can depend on him. And we're going to see why he did that with the children of Israel as they went to the wilderness. Deuteronomy chapter 8. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness. Why did he do that? Why did they have to go to the wilderness? To humble thee, to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. A lot of people don't want to go to the wilderness. But guess what? That's the only way you're going to find out who you really are. That's the only way that God can show you who you are and how much you need him. You know, we can know it. Oh, I read this. I know these passages. But to live that, that's something else. To experience it, that's something else. And it's a choice. Just like the children of Israel, they had to choose to walk for the water to open up and to go through the wilderness. They had to have faith, make that first step. They're willing to move forward. If you're not, the water is not going to open up. The Red Sea is not going to open up, and you're just going to stay in that comfort zone. And thinking that everything is okay, do the daily routine. And will you be ready for the horses? Will you be ready for the swelling of the Jordan? In Jeremiah 12, verse 5. God is trying to help us be ready for a test step by step, little by little, at our pace. But one day it's just going to come. And whether you're ready or not, it's coming. Verse 3, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna. And we know the manna represents the word of God, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. And as I experienced God towards the end of my college years, an opportunity opened up for me to get a job back in Boston, or southern Boston, which was in Canton, Massachusetts. And I had no one there. But one of my friends who left a semester before me, he was saying that how he wanted to go back to his home country, Kenya, and that there would be an open spot and that I can come sleep on the couch until he leaves and I can take his room. And I was like, I didn't have any money at the time, you know, because a student, I'm broke. So that was the perfect opportunity. And so I took the job and moved there. And after a few months, he left and took over his room. And by that time, I had enough money to, you know, start building up myself. And I went to a church there at first. It was a very big church. And it was just too much because, you know, I'm still learning and I wanted people to kind of guide me. So I decided to go attend a different church, which was a smaller church. And I felt home, you know, as soon as I went through those doors and I received the welcome hugs and, you know, I just felt like this is where I needed to be. And I met some people, a group of people that I would study with almost every other day, you know, in the evening when they had time, and we would study the Bible together. And that's where I met my wife, actually. She was part of that group. And it was wonderful. I was growing. I was starting to understand. For the first time, I knew who Ellen White was. I read the book, The Desire of Ages, you know, Patriarchs and Prophets. And wow, God, you're choosing to reveal all of this to me? You know, a sinner like me, all the things that I've done, you know, I've kept all the other details of what happened throughout my life. But, you know, the path that I was on was definitely opposite to where I am right now, you know. And I just thank God for his love and his patience. But again, I want to say it took me getting out of my comfort zone. And I wasn't a Christian then. You know, I didn't know what God was doing, but he was leading me, you know, through these different moving from place to place. And so we see how God is trying to humble us. He's trying to prove us, and he's also trying to change us. And Patriarchs and Prophet It was not an easy thing to hold the hosts of Israel in waiting before the Lord. Lacking discipline and self-control, they became violent and unreasonable. Look at the part, so they didn't really have discipline. For once a whole nation putting together, and now they have to move and listen to this one guy, and they're all adults. And it was not an easy task for Moses. But look at what God did afterwards. This is the sanctuary in the middle, and they had all the tribes. They were set up, and every time they stopped and every time they moved, everyone knew what to do. The wilderness gave them discipline. The idols, the deficiencies, the weaknesses, the wilderness builds you up. Israel became very disciplined afterwards, at least as a nation, And like we see again in the picture, just the way they would set up, it shows how God was working through them. In the book of Judges, chapter 2, verse 18, and when the Lord raised them up judges, then the Lord was with the judge and delivered them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge. For it repented the Lord because of their groanings by reason of them that oppressed them and vexed them. So before we had kings, there were judges, right? And why would he raise those judges? So what Israel would do, they would get into idolatry. And because of that, he would allow other nations to take them captive or to rule over them. All right. So now they needed help. So they would cry out to God and sorry for all that we did. And guess what? God would raise a judge to deliver them from these nations, oppressing nations. Now, verse 19, and it came to pass when the judge was dead, that they returned and corrupted themselves more than their fathers and following other gods to serve them and to bow down unto them. So it was a vicious cycle. No more judge, we go back into idolatry. And then keep going at it again. Verse 21, I also will not henceforth drive out any from before them of the nations which Joshua left when he died. 22, that through them I may prove Israel whether they will keep the way of the Lord to walk therein as their fathers did keep it or not. So what was the result of that? People started noticing, all right, every time we don't have a ruler over us, we have these captives, we have these nations that come and take over. And so now they're going to ask for a king. Because every time a judge died, their kids did not inherit, that position. Now they had no more ruler. But with a king, it's different. When you have a king, if the king dies, then the son takes over. So you always have somebody over you. So it makes you feel safe. But God didn't want that, because God didn't want people to start focusing on the ruler, but on him. I don't know if you guys are getting this. God wanted them to rely on himself, not on the people that he was choosing to deliver them. That's why he was giving them judges. But they went and they asked for kings. Now make us king to just judge us like all the nations, because then we'll have safety at all times and we can do whatever we want and we don't have to worry because we'll always have a ruler over us. And all these other nations won't come and play around with us just like they've been doing in the past, which was really not the case. But it actually was worse for them, right? Because look what happened with Saul or Solomon and all these things. So we want safety, we want comfort, but God is trying to say, no, these things are not always good for us. I have a better way. It might feel uncomfortable. Yes, we need faith, but it is what's going to help you draw closer to me. And I'm reminded of David, right? I believe that went to praise the Lord. I'm pretty sure, the thought of my kids getting older and leaving after all the care and the nurturing that we're providing right now, I'm not going to lie. It's like, whoa, will I be ready for that moment? But I have to be, right? But also, my path makes me realize that's what they need to grow. You know, one day they're going to have to leave home and have their own life. And I believe David, it'll be the same for him. He'll draw closer to God because of this experience. So Moses, and I'm just taking examples throughout the Bible to really let it settle that we need that. You know, have you ever really taken the time, although we're all worshiping God, have you ever taken the time to say, is this where you want me to be? Am I at the right job? Am I in the right state? The right house? Have you ever taken the time to ask yourself that and act upon what God shows you? We don't want to ask that because sometimes He might say, it's time to go. After I was with my new church, I got married, had my first child. Well, guess what? It was time to go. Again, I did not want to leave. This time, I did not want to leave because I loved the church folks and it was a new experience for me. The love. I mean, I remember when we got married, we were flooded with gifts. People were counseling us, helping us. We were meeting new people, going to different churches. It was wonderful. I didn't want to leave that. But God gave me evidence after evidence. It's time to go. And let's just put it like this. It was not, the more I was rebelling, the more things were happening that weren't supposed to happen, that was causing friction, you know? And it's to a point where I had to go. I didn't even have a choice anymore. I had to go, and I moved back to Western Massachusetts, where we were renting, because at that point we were looking for our home. And again, I went back to this whole not knowing anybody. And you know, you have a family now. You want support. You want people around you. And I was not a happy camper for a while. But this is how the things that I've learned through these situations, I would have never learned if I stayed in my comfort zone. The growth that I've experienced. So I'm not going to say that I've always moved by faith and always, no. God sometimes had to push me and His mercy. He had yet, so this is about Moses. Moses thought that Israel was going to be delivered by him. You know, he went to military service with the Egyptians and I'm going to free you guys. God chose me. Yes, that was true, but not the way he thought. He had yet to learn the same lesson of faith that Abraham and Jacob had been taught, not to rely upon human strength or wisdom, but upon the power of God for the fulfillment of His promises. And there were other lessons that amid the solitude of the mountains Moses was to receive. In the school of self-denial and hardship, he was to learn patience to temper his passions. Moses went from killing a soldier, hiding it, to being the meekest man at that time. How do you do that? Only God, through the wilderness. Moses would have not learned that back in Egypt. Moses would have not learned that with his fellow brothers and sisters. He had to go somewhere where he was tried. Self-denial and hardship, out of your support system. Again, are you where you need to be? Is this about just being in a comfortable place? Is that why we're here? To keep it going, the same thing over and over? Or is there a bigger picture? Are we trying to make it to heaven? And we know we need another character in order for that to happen. Mark chapter 14, verse 22. And as they did eat, Jesus took bread and blessed and brake it and gave to them and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Amen. So we know Jesus is the bread of life. The Apostle Paul says we are to be living epistles. And we know the word is bread. So we are to be bread as well. Remember Joseph, he gathered bread and his brothers benefited from that. We have to be broken as well in order for us to be able to be distributed to others, to be a blessing to them. You know, Jesus, he broke it and then he shared, and there was a blessing to the people. God has to break us in order for us to be a blessing to others. We have to remember that. No pain, no gain. Matthew 19:28. And Jesus said unto them, "Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." So now I'm in Western Massachusetts, in a new place. I had to adapt, family, had to let it go. And we finally get our first home as we were looking. And it was 5 acres. It was very different from what we were used to coming from apartments. And also somewhat in a rural setting. It was an experience and other changes again. But after 2 years, I had to go. And that was in 2019. And then 2020, COVID hits. And we felt impressed to come out here. We wanted to have more experience of the deeper experience or a fuller experience of country living. With the kids growing up, I was convinced that that's the type of setting we wanted for them at least to be in. And it's been traveling, going different places. We started back in Eastern Maine, found our way all the way here, met a lot of people throughout that, and learned a lot. I won't stop saying this, I keep learning. And I saw how there's so much that God is teaching me, how far behind I was. And, you really start feeling like a child. The more you allow God to guide you. And it causes you, like it says in Deuteronomy, to humble yourself. You don't know everything. And guess what? You never will. But let one that knows you take care of you. And that's the hardest thing for man to do. We're designed to take over, take charge. And here I am now. I have to, okay, God, take control, because clearly I don't have the answers, but you do. It definitely helped me draw closer to him throughout these years. And a lot of people may look at my life, especially those that are not of the faith. What are you doing? And sometimes I ask myself that, what am I doing? But I see the fruit. You shall know them by their fruit. And that's the most important thing. Are you bearing fruit? I'm not talking about, are you making more money or are you more comfortable? No, I'm talking about the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, joy, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Are these things being developed in your life? Do you find yourself to be more selfish now than before, although you claim to be a Christian? Do you find yourself to be more impatient, less temperate, but you claim to be a Christian? Every week, we're supposed to grow. Every week, the Sabbath is to settle the things that God shows us. Let it sink in. And then next week, you're a new person, new trials, new challenges, new truth. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne. Let us stop worrying about trying to put ourselves in high position right now. God got us. He promised. We're going to sit with him on his throne in heaven. We will have that exalted position when we get up there. We don't have to worry about that here on earth. We're pilgrims. Now, of course, I'm not saying for people to just go out there and do whatever and, I'm going to leave my job or I'm going to... That's not the message. Israel, as they were moving to the wilderness, there's one thing that they had to wait for before they made a move. The pillar of cloud. Until that pillar of cloud rose up, they were able to see it and started moving, Israel stayed right there. So you need to wait for the Lord to show you, to give you enough evidence. Now, it still takes faith despite these evidence, but you need to wait on that before you make move. A lot of people, they just go ahead. And then unfortunately, things happen that God did not call them to do. Israel would not move until, you can read that in the book of Numbers, until the pillar of cloud started moving. So remember that as we're trying to come out of our comfort zones, out of our support system, that God is also saying, wait on me, let me lead. Just like he told Abraham in Genesis chapter 17, go before, let me go before you and then make you perfect. And that's the same plan that he has for us today. So I will finish with this. Are you where God wants you to be? And meditate on that and be sincere. And I know you can be worried about the answer when you ask him, but trust me, you will be a blessing to others. And I hope and pray you guys were blessed, and this was my message. Happy Sabbath. Father, Lord, we want to thank you for all that you do for us, Lord. I pray that you help us to want to draw closer to you, Lord, and want to make the sacrifices necessary in order for us to do so. Lord, give us the strength. I know we all have concerns in this walk, but Lord, I just pray that you help us to live by faith and not by sight. In the precious name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.